Marina Abramovic's 2012 performance, The Artist is Present, in the New York MoMA is the ultimate performance, at least according to me. For me it is the 0 degree of dance and theatre. No articulated movement, no articulated language, yet the highest intensity of expression. For 3 months, 6 days a week, 8 hours a day, two sensitive bodies looking at each other, oppose each other across the table. There are no cards on the table. In between them apparently nothing happens, nothing in the sense that for the audience whatever happens behind the either fixed or mindful eyes is incomprehensible, though everything can be projected onto this interface. The artist is present. At the end, Peter already told us, in the 18th century, craftsmanship and artisticity was separated when aesthetics as a formal philosophical discipline, and for that matter, design as a practical arty discipline, was born. Yet it all started with this painting, Las Meninas, The Ladies in Court, Diego Velázquez, 1656. The artist is present. The craftsman Velázquez, serving his king and queen, decided to step forward, turning the craftsman into an artist. Representing the artist's body in the very act of painting, this self-reflective gesture was performed in the 17th century with this painting of Velázquez. Not in the flesh, but in the brush. Though he claims to have painted the ladies in court, Las Meninas, you see them at the front, indirectly thematizing, at least according to Michel Foucault, the impossibility of representing his sovereign, the queen and the king, in the back of the room in the mirror, which is completely impossible, by the way. At the height of their power, the real subject of this painting is Velázquez himself. By painting himself, painting a painting on the painting that he painted, by painting himself, painting a painting on the painting that he painted, he wrapped up the core business of modern art. The formal feedback loop of self-reflection that has become the raison d'être of the modern avant-garde. In the same vein, the artist's body is present in all art disciplines. Yet, in the visual arts, in design, architecture, even in fashion, the artist's body is only indirectly involved. In the performing arts, however, especially in dance and theatre, and to a certain extent in music too, the artist's bodies, as in the performance of Abramovich, are structural aspects of artistic interactions. Though in music the body's expressivity is most of the time mediated by an instrument, in dance and theatre, like an Abramovich performance, the full, sensible body is the medium par excellence. The medium is the message. The body is the brain. What is taught at ArtEZ Department for Dance and Theatre to students is how to transform their very body, or the bodies of their client groups, as we call them, into skilled performers. Of course, theatre differs from dance. Let me reflect a bit on that. Both body language and bodies expressing themselves through language overlap somewhere. This somewhere, this in-between, is what I will qualify as embodiment. Yet, theatre and dance are historically intrinsically connected. Theatre emancipated itself from dance. The ritual dance and the music setting in early Greek Dionysian mysteries, there we are, gradually turned into a theatrical setting in which the chorus interacts with the protagonist. Our notion conversation, Nishat already mentioned it, conversation still contains this co-origin of dance and theatre. Conversari means to live with, keep company with. But physically, conversation means to turn about with. Turning towards or against, from vertere. To turn, turn back, be turned, convert, transform, translate, be changed. The Latin con, with, and versare, a frequentative of vertere, contains the noun versus. So the meaning of the Dutch word vers, as in a song, simply means rhythmically striding up and down. A powwow of Native Americans, which boils down to the original sequence of dance, simply put, steps. Then one of the dancers took a different direction, stepping out of line, taking the lead, as it were. The first actor entered the stage. He was called the Hypocrites, a pretender and a dissembler, reminding us of the Greek verb hypokrinestai. Play a part, pretend, but also answer. Once one of the dancers differed the rhythm of the dance, the rest turned into a chorus, raising political issues that the Hypocrites had to answer. Oedipus, Antigone, Orestes, they are all hypocrites. From hippo, under, plus the middle voice of crinine, that is to sift, to decide, to discern. It has the same steam as the notion crisis. And the evolution of the meaning in Attic Greek then is from separate, gradually, to answer a fellow actor on the stage, to play a role, and eventually evolving into the actor we know nowadays. I know it is still a long journey to arrive at Brecht's theatrical politics, let alone Peter Sonneveld's diagonally walking the stage, and even a longer run to Martha Graham's individual expressivity, let alone Jon Wouters' urban dance sessions. In spite of the fact that philosophers like Martin Heidegger, Hannah Arendt, Gilles Deleuze or Michel Foucault all returned to the Greek and Roman world to critically analyze the problems of their days, we are no longer living in those days. The discourse changed several times. Even a 20th century discourse on avant-garde art is probably outdated, or at least needs a thorough update. This is the 21st century. This is the beginning of a century in which the body has been dissolved in the exponential acceleration of digital communication and transportation. We live in a world in which bodies are integrally connected to media that route these bodies via interfaces in a global culture in which everything is connected with everything. What does it take to research dancing and acting in this dematerialized visual culture? To conclude that nobody is any longer interested in being locked in a dark space to watch bodies spinning around and speaking up is too harsh a conclusion. I would rather draw another conclusion. Dance and theatre are the most critical art forms in present times. However, clarifying this trans-avant-garde position, or referring to Hans Thies Lehmann, this post-post dramatic position, we need a new discourse and a different vocabulary. Let me hint some aspects of this new way of conceptualizing and the research that is implied. So what I'm going to talk about is the body of research and a threefold embodied research, and I will knit them together. So let's first start with this first research. Research has a subject and an object. There's someone who is researching and there's somebody that is researched. The topic of research at universities are immense. Take my own branch of research, thinking about thinking, philosophy. Simple, yet the range of topics is vast. But we are not talking about research at a university, as was indicated by Peter as well. There's something else happening in the art, higher vocational education. So what are we trying to focus on? Let me just give you a hint. So let's do it in a more loose way. When I talk about reflection, it's not about theory, but that opposes practice. I'm talking about the fact that we always reflect. There's always anticipation and retrospection. And in this anticipation and retrospection, reflection and action come together. That's the reason why it's called reflection. What we have in the ArtEZ DNA is a specific print. So I was asking myself, what is the specific print of ArtEZ, and how can we reorganize the education in that way that this specific print is really developed from the first moment the student enters the school. And, as Nishat also said, when he leaves school, the students have to be connected to the school in order to update at least the body of knowledge. So what I'm talking about is embodied cognition. Let me give you a definition. So by using the term embodied, we mean to highlight 2 points. First, that cognition depends upon the kinds of experience that come from having a body with various sensory-motor capacities. And second, that these individual sensory-motor capacities are themselves embedded in a more encompassing biological, psychological, and cultural context. Knowledge is always embedded. So this means that when we talk about a body of knowledge and skills, about method for that matter, we are talking about a body in the physical sense as well. So there's a mental element of a body of knowledge and skills, but also a physical element to the body of knowledge and skills. So what I want to propose is a threefold embodiment. When we talk about students, students experiment with their body. They develop skills. They develop knowledge, but it's not the knowledge that is abstracted from the practice, but it's knowledge that is implemented in the practice as a reflection with an A. So on the first level, embodied knowledge talks about didactics. On the second level, of course, there's a body of knowledge and skills that is incorporated by the students and taught by the teachers. So the second level of embodiment is method. The first level is didactics, the second level is method. And the third level, and then we are going to talk about the lectorate or the professorate, I don't care how you want to call it, semantics. So on an academic level, on an institutional level, we are talking about the research of this embodied knowledge and of this embodied body of knowledge and skills. So the challenge is to connect those 3 levels. And the challenge is to renew and innovate the knowledge, the embodied knowledge that comes into ArtEZ and that goes out of ArtEZ. But in order to do that, we have to leave behind what was called before this, the metaphors, the paradigmatic metaphors with which we perceive reality. So let me just try to give you an impression of what this means. First of all, this. When we talk about skills, this is the UNESCO scale of skills. This is what we need in the 21st century, at least according to the UNESCO. So, there is this outer, so at the fringes of this scale, we are working towards an entrepreneurial spirit, very good for present-day artists, an engaged thinker, even better for present-day artists, and an ethical citizen. That's okay. But the artist is not present here. So where is the artist in this scale? It would be very challenging to redefine all those different skills towards ArtEZ and just find out what this specific artist must be. But one thing is very important in here, and that's where the red line, the pale arrow, the red arrow is pointing at. Lifelong learning. When we talk about learning, it doesn't stop at the end of the education. Learning goes on. We can't live on and just think we did our exam, it's over. This counts for students, but this also counts for teachers as well. So when we translate this to a new model, a new paradigm that we can adapt to reorganize, for instance, this education, this boils down to this. We have a specific visual paradigm. And the visual paradigm that we have is a pyramid. We all see pyramids. Simple as that. You think you're smart, you think you see something else, but you see pyramids. And the reason why you see pyramids is because you are taught to see pyramids. Maslow, right? You have to climb the ladder in order to express yourself. On the dollar of Trump, there's a pyramid, right? It's chopped off, so there's still hope. But there's a pyramid over there. The power, the pyramid of power, that's how we visualize power relations. And it was exactly Michel Foucault who deconstructed this pyramid and showed something else. But this is how we visualize our education, for that matter. So, I think we have to make a big change. We are living in a world that is no longer ruled by pyramids. It's still in our brain, it's still in our system, but the very fact of daily life is networks. When we communicate, when we connect, we don't look up to heaven, to the top of the pyramid, we look down on an interface. And this interface connects us to the world. Well, throw away your smartphone and you'll understand what I mean. If it's gone, you are gone. If my pupils on the middle vocational education are not apt 2 minutes, they think they're dead. So, and most of you also, I think. Yeah, so we have to reconstruct the way we perceive the world. And once we reconstruct the way we perceive the world, in not seeing pyramids, but networks, then suddenly the subject that is researching and the object that is researched becomes a node in a network. It means that the research can't be secluded, can't be closed into an institution. The research is part of life. It depends upon where you draw a limit, where you draw, in order to get coherence, of course, you have to limit yourself. But that's only a provisional thing. So networks are the ultimate ground for research. So when we talk in terms of the pyramid, we always talk in oppositions. Nishat already referred to that, and at least heuristically, he introduced a new opposition and then deconstructed it, finally, right? So there's no longer opposition, but that's the way we think. When we say thinking, there's this voice in ourselves that says acting, theory, practice, reflection, reflex, word, deeds. So we have this oppositional kind of mechanism that enhances the idea of the pyramid. We say top-down, and then a smart CEO says, no, we're not going to do it top-down, we're going to do it bottom-up. And he looks very smart, because he thinks that he says something completely different. But top-down is bottom-up. Exactly the same. It's all part of the pyramid. It's all part of the pyramid. So, when we have to change our idea of the world and change our very perception of education, we have to throw away the pyramid, introduce the network, and then suddenly we understand that everything is connected no longer by linear lines, vertical or horizontal, but by feedback loops. Everything is fed back into the system. Everything is connected to everything. As a result of which, this is not a linear model, this is a circular model. And we all know we have to evolve on an economic level to a circular economy. This is the first step on the level of perception. If you can't see it, you can't realize it. So, what I propose is that we have to redefine and reorientate ourselves from a linear way of thinking into a cyclical way of thinking. So we have to speak about cyclical reflection. That's the second step, but that's not the last step. We need another step. So let's get back to the first idea of students, embodied knowledge, teachers, body of knowledge and skills, lectorate, embodied research. What does this mean? So first you think in pyramids. There's the lector, there's the teacher, there's the student. So once you turn this complete paradigm, there's a circle where students, teachers, and lectorate are feeding each other all the time. connecting to other networks, feeding this information from everywhere. Globally, nationally, locally, regionally, doesn't matter. So eventually, this is what we have. The teacher, the lectorate, and the student are in the middle of this system, feeding each other. Right? But then you have to take the student very serious. And the student has to take his teacher very serious. And the student and the teacher have to take the lectorate very serious. So it's not about theory, it's about discourse, sharing a discourse. This is the real thing, right? So we are part of the world. This is not Arnhem. This is much bigger than Arnhem. This is Dasein, is design, anticipating on the lecturate we are going to do tomorrow. So what I'm proposing is a completely different way of educating, in which we accept the fact that, and that was your point as well, in art, every artist is an experiment. He's experimenting with his own medium. And in dance and theater, the medium is body, one way or the other. There's a difference between dance and theater, and we have to find out exactly what this difference is. But in the final instance, I think the idea of an educational system is no longer thought of as a pyramid, but as a cyclical system of networks. And that's how we have to work. So once you, I think you said something about the alumni as well. So alumni that leave ArtEZ have to be fed back in the system, right? And all the other networks, all the teachers that have a professional practice in which they are experimenting, have to be fed back into the system. And that has to be connected to the networks on a national and an international level. And in this way, ArtEZ becomes a node in a network, as the student is a node in a network. It's just a proposal, but perhaps it is worth thinking about. Thank you.
Beautiful, Henk Oosterling. Anyway, stay with me for a minute. I am curious to hear, if possible, from Mirjam Zeugner. Is she around? Yes, you're up there. Maybe you could join us even. Would you mind?
She had a good performance.
I saw you this morning.
You got the point.
You did the ArtEZ honors program here about artistic research. You're a dancer and a choreographer. Join us, Henk. And somehow I have the feeling that you must have recognized a lot in Henk Oosterling's proposition.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. You hold the microphone for me, thank you. Yes, absolutely. I've very much recognized this idea of feedback loop. I mean, in my practice, I'm not so much busy with the meta level of shaping education. I'm very much busy with creating my own artistic work. But I've definitely been busy with this idea of figuring out how all the sources that I have, which is on one hand the body and on one hand my intellectual capacities, how this can be organized really in a way that these hierarchies are deinstalled and hence both worlds can somehow unfold and be a helpful means to an end rather than top-down, a mind that tells the body what to do. And in a way, as a woman, I must say, empowering the body is also kind of a feminist undertaking to acknowledge really this embodied information and to somehow give that space and acknowledge also these different textures of embodied knowledge. Yes.
Henk, I also was struck this morning by Mirjam when she described to us that she is a dancer and a choreographer, approaches her own body as her research partner. Is this more or less what you are talking about as well?
Yeah, I think so. So you also mentioned that this opposition between mind and body is completely outdated as well. So I always prefer to talk about energy, not about mind or body. And of course the energy boils down to something which has agency. And we never know where the agency is, right? So, but that the mind would be the agency is complete nonsense. It's there, and it tries to grip and get a hold on what is happening, but the body is a much bigger agency in all the facets of all different practices of life. So, in that sense, I think there were a lot of resonance when I saw your performance. Yeah, yeah.
Well, we'll be sharing this stage after the break as well. I just wanted to create a connection here, to create some feedback loop here. Thank you so much, Mirjam. Thank you.